The Wednesday week is sponsored by the Riverside Cafe, the perfect place for a pre-match pint.
There's a chance here, a great save by Turner from McClare. A terrific goal by Sheridan. Brentman against Jones. Get in. You could have two goalkeepers in there that would have trouble with saving.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the Wednesday week, the Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm Lord Hillsborough, and with me aligned, first of all, we have Mr. Marriott. Jamesy, oh boy, how the devil are you?
In keeping with what I was talking about last week in terms of my new beer-free podcasting tonight, I have a pint of water, and I've just had a strawberry-flavoured frozen yoghurt lolly. I know how to live, me, right?
Are you on some kind of sort of health kick or something there, Jay? Or?
No, do you know what? I drank a lot of beer at the football last night. I didn't quite intend to. It just went that way. So today is definitely a beer-free day. You
don't have to make excuses like that, Jay. You're not married. That's what us married chaps have to do. Also on the line we have Mr. Dickie Owl. I was going to say Big Dick, how are you then? But
I'll answer to anything these days. I'm fantastic, thank you. On the other hand, I'm drinking beer yet again. It's a podcast and football thing. I just can't, it's like fish and chips, beer and football.
It's a day ending in Y. I'm having a beer.
Exactly.
Right then, chaps, I suppose we best have a little bit of a chat about the Wednesday, had we? And we really had better off start off with the Preston game as well, because it was a little bit lacklustre, wasn't it, gentlemen?
Yeah, it was. As I've said to a few people, Saturday was brilliant. It was a really good day right up until 3:00, and then everything obviously just went a little bit wrong after that.
It goes like that so often, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just? It was one of those, if that was a game halfway through the season, then I think that we'd be sat here now saying it was just one of those days. Nothing that we did particularly came off. It didn't feel like the formation quite worked. It didn't feel like the tactics were there. It all felt very sloppy. I kind of sum it up as maybe suggesting that it felt like we were still in pre-season mode, like we'd approached it like it was a pre-season friendly, whereas Preston were playing the first game of their proper season. We were off the pace. We were trying to take too many touches, and things just didn't work for us. Now, it's so difficult when it's first game of the season. What do you make of it? Do you just write it off and just say, well, it didn't work. Let's assume that he's going to change things and that it'll all be fine from the QPR game onwards? Or, do we really need to worry about it? Does the kind of the panic that we've had among the fan base, and there's been a lot of negativity about it. Is that warranted, or do we just kind of say, well, you know what, forget about it, let's move on?
You see, I feel like now I'm ringing into football heaven. One of these guys that rings in and says, they were bloody rubbish today, bloody rubbish. Did you go? No, I didn't go. So I feel I really I can't comment about the actual game. The thing that got me about it afterwards, and I did put this out on Twitter, was it's just the negative is just really, really frustrating and really getting me down at the minute. It's proper so taking last night's result, which we'll talk about later, it's kind of brightened things a little bit again from all the doom and gloom that we lost one game, like Newcastle lost their first two games last year.
And I've got to kind of mention this. I tweeted about this on Saturday evening, and then after tweeting this, decided actually I'm going to come off Twitter for a little while and just ignore it, because I don't get why, and there were a lot of them. I don't get fans that booed the team at full time. Now, but the tweet that I put out was along the lines of the fact that I would never boo my own team anyway. And I get that, people pay the money, they reserve the right to react in that way if they want to do. I would argue I don't understand what it possibly achieves. I can't see how it's good for the team. But even so, like on the first game of the season, we've just had two seasons where we finished in the playoffs. The first game of the season. Is it right that the team are getting booed off the pitch because of one performance?
Is it chuffers right?
That surely can't be That surely can't be right. You'd have thought at full time that was the game that we needed to win to get into the playoffs, to secure our playoff place or something. It was as if it was the end of the world with the reaction of some of the crowd. And it's like, it's the first game of the season. There's no need for that. Does that happen at other clubs? Were there other clubs getting booed off on the first day of the season?
I'm very much the same on booing. I probably told you the story before. The last person I ever booed in a Wednesday shirt was John Sheridan. So yes, that Rich, you're a twat. I know. I would that night. Everybody else booed him. I booed too.
No arguments.
And I vowed after that. No, I was a twat for it. I know that. After that, I vowed now not to boo them. Yeah, I'll shout and give them a bit of grief, But booing, it's like putting them off at the end of the first half and clapping on the second half. It's kind of just keep quiet. That's my way of doing it. Silence will greet them rather than applause or boos. When
Westwood came up, everyone clapped and applauded Westwood, and it's like that surely is a little bit odd. I appreciate that Westwood generally puts in fairly good performances, but his distribution on Saturday was really lacking. He kind of let us down really with his distribution. So he in a lot of ways he was just as big a contributor to the fact that things just didn't work on Saturday as anyone. And it's weird that they kind of feel it's all right to boo all the out team players, but then not boo the goalkeeper. I don't know. I don't get the concept of it. I just don't understand it. It seems weird to me. It seems alien as to why you would pay all this money to follow a football team to just boo them. It's like it's bizarre.
I think because we finished the end of last season on a low with a bad performance that meant we didn't deserve to go through to the playoff final. And I think everybody just kind of you pick up from where you left off almost. And I get why people were negative, but I'm not saying it's right. It just drives you nuts sometimes. And the bloke last week at the Rangers game slagging people off for being negative the entire match, which was a bit, a bit ironic. But yeah, I think we just need to just be realistic sometimes. We're very short-tempered, very fickle Wednesday fans, and that it's not just these days. It's going back, and now it all gets put on social media instead of being shouted in the stands or whatever. And we have to read it 7 days a week rather than just on a Saturday afternoon for a couple of hours.
Is there something to be said for Preston's opening game of the season at Preston? They're up for it. Obviously, they've got the crowd behind them. Is there something to be said for that, or am I trying to make excuses?
Well, I mean, they were definitely up for it, but I think it's a lot of the complaints that I've seen from people have been fair. It's just the way in which people have made them and the fact that it's just been a bit over the top. We should have been up for it as well. There was no reason for us to be as kind of slow out the blocks as we were. Other than and some of the stuff people have said is very true in terms of the fact that we did appear to approach the game quite negatively. We didn't seem to play in a way that suited the 11 that were out there. We're playing Jordan Rhodes, who's not really a target man. You can't really kind of use him in the way that we seem to be trying to sort of persevere using him on Saturday. It felt like there were things that were wrong. I just don't think that they really justified the reaction that we've subsequently had. But yeah, I mean, Preston were the better team, and if they hadn't have won that game, they would feel a little bit hard done to, and we'd probably think that it was a point gained. They didn't. They got the penalty decision. I've not watched it back. I've not watched the highlights. I don't know if it was a penalty or not. I've not really seen anyone complain about it, so I'm going to assume that it was a fair call. It was probably we probably got what we deserved.
I think sometimes you just got to realise the best team won. Obviously, I didn't see the performance, so was it them cancelling us out or just being completely lacklustre? I don't know. I was on my jolly.
I think it was the latter. There was some rather lacklustre. We just didn't look like we had any energy or anything at all, really. And yes, it's disappointing. Of course, we want to sort of crack on with the first game of the season, etc., etc. But a lot of clubs that were expecting to do that didn't as well, did they? So obviously Middlesbrough lost and Barnsley and Reading and people like that lost as well. So I think I'm not going to try and read too much into this, and I certainly wasn't one of the people sort of. In fact, even I stopped off Twitter, and as that's the only place I actually exist, it's rather difficult sometimes when you stop off Twitter because these people do get on my tits. To be quite frank, chaps, they really, really do.
It's even harder when you've got a social media business trying to stop off social media. It doesn't work.
Well, imagine if that was the only place you existed. It's not harder, Albin, not harder at all.
Very true, very true.
But with the actual team selection itself, I mean, is that what you guys were expecting? Obviously, Westwood, yeah, fair enough. Hunt, Lees, Lubens, Padil. I think that's pretty much standard for the moment, isn't it?
I would have gone slightly different with the strikers. I would have been going Rhodes and Hooper. And Forestieri out wide.
Yep. I just wonder whether or not this is opening up such a bag of worms. I wonder whether the players that we've got, whether our first choice strikers should be Fletcher and Hooper, because they work well off each other. It works with those two. You've got a target man who's actually pretty good with the ball as well. He's not just a target man. And then you've got Hooper who will work hard off him. And I would argue that I think Hooper is more effective than Rhodes, considering the fact that they both play similar-ish games. They would both play off a target man. That Hooper is the better choice there, and that Rhodes is someone that can change a game for us when we need to, or something like that. But we spent £8 million on him. Can we keep him on the bench? I don't know. It felt like on Saturday that we played Rhodes because we thought, well, we've got to play Rhodes, but he wasn't necessarily the right choice given the kind of game that we got in front of us. And it was proved that was the case, because it just didn't work. He wasn't effective, and I don't think it's his fault. He wasn't really getting much in the way of service. It was a bad day all round, really. But yeah, I think slightly different team selection might have been a very different outcome.
I think there was one other place on the bench that really surprised me. And why Winnell didn't get on the bench, I don't know.
Because Big Dave's lovely little bottom was taking that seat. Bless him.
Well, when we get, I'll tell you a story when we get to talk about last night's game. Last night's the Chesterfield game about Mr. New Year, but we'll leave that for when we go to that game.
That sounds like an EastEnders moment. One other little thing, though, obviously, if you are playing, obviously, Hooper and Fletch, there is that question of what to do with Forestieri, because if we do move into the left, then obviously Reach is out, and then we're going to have the old, we paid £4 million for him, so what we're going to do with that? I mean, would you rather see Hooper and Fletch, Fletcher on the left, and just Reach maybe playing left back or on the bench?
But shouldn't this be a positive, these embarrassment of riches that we've got? Reach has to sit on the bench because Forestieri
asking the question.
Why is that a negative?
It's not a negative at all. But just asking the question.
But I know what people think and what they say. If you drop Reach, look at that. Oh, that's £5 million wasted. Yeah.
They would say that it's a lose-lose situation, and you've got to pick the right team to beat who's in front of you. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case on Saturday. It wasn't the right team to beat Preston. Now, Preston have got a new manager. We didn't really know what kind of team they were going into it, and I think first game of the season is always really hard in that sense, because you can't really scout a team, and you can't really build a conclusive game plan when you've not seen that team play under that new manager. And obviously they're going to be different to how Alex Neil would have played a team at Norwich, because it's a completely different set of players. So, I feel for Carlos a little bit in terms of the fact that people have really turned on him and said it was the wrong team selection, because it was the wrong team selection. But he can only really work with what he can see, and it's difficult when you're playing a team that's got a new manager in, and you've not been able to do your homework properly on them, because it's the unknown.
We were the beneficiary of that situation when Carlos first arrived, weren't we? That's the thing. Nobody knew what we were going to do.
Yeah,
which ways up.
Absolutely.
But just to come back to what you said there, James, though, should we be lining up for what the other team are like, or should we line up because of what we're like? Should we be playing games because of us, not because of what the opposition looks like?
Then you've got to ask the question of whether or not did Carlos pick the team that he picked on Saturday because he sees that as his strongest 11?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then that's exactly what we did. He picked the team that he thought is our best team and should be able to go out and win.
That's what I think we should be doing, picking our best 11, not the team to beat whoever we're playing.
It didn't work on Saturday.
No, it didn't. You're right. But is that his best 11? Only he knows that.
There's always going to be. I agree with the sentiment of you and a lot of people in terms of the fact that last year we did swap and change a lot, and it felt like we were very what's the word I'm looking for? Reactive to our opposition, possibly too much. But you've got to have an element of that. I think. Through any team has to have an element of picking the right team for the opposition, because you're not going to play the same 11 week in, week out for the whole season. Players need a rest every now and then, and you are going to slightly tweak things. It's not unusual for teams to have a different formation away from home than they do at home, and I wouldn't describe myself as being a huge advocate of that, but you see it happen, and I think we know with Carlos that we know what he's like, and I don't think he's going to change in terms of the fact that he will swap and change things. That is who he is. I think it would be better if it was less than last season, if we weren't chopping and changing quite as much as we did last season, because I think that probably did cost us a bit, and maybe he doesn't know what his best 11 is, and maybe that's a whole different problem and a whole different discussion for another day. I don't know. I trying to look on the positive side. I don't know, but I think that what we've got to do here is just bear in mind it's the first game of the season, right? In the same way that we all, I know I joke about not looking at the league table till Christmas, but it's until there's been 3 or 4 games of the season, you can't spot any patterns. You can't really take any conclusions after one game of the season. If on Saturday, let's say that penalty doesn't get given, what's to say that we don't go down the other end, sneak a win, and we all go, we played that one well, didn't we? Rode it out and then sneaked a last-minute winner. It didn't happen, so it's an irrelevant point. But what I'm saying is you can't draw conclusions after one game. I think we've all just got to relax a little bit and just see how we feel. Even in a week's time after we've seen the QPR game and the Sunderland game, we've got a much better idea as to how this team is unfolding this season.
All I got from that bit of conversation there was an image of Carlos walking down the touchline saying, "I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses." See, I think that's it. Carlos's PR is done. Right then, chaps. So on to a little bit more positive news, because the Chesterfield game eventually ended up being lovely, didn't it? It was smashing. Yeah,
much better performance.
It was cracker.
Yeah, really good last night. Right from the off, we were out of the blocks. It took a bit of a while to score the goals, but I think they were very, very much. I think we looked about 20 minutes in and we were 72% possession, which isn't everything, but we were really throwing the kitchen sink at them. And I thought they defended really well, and their goalkeeper early doors made some good saves, and eventually kind of the pressure told, towards the very end of the first half.
It was quite an interesting night, actually, because I couldn't get up a huge amount of enthusiasm for going. I didn't actually get my ticket until Monday, and even then it was against my better judgment after Saturday, and I kind of thought, I could do with, I've got a load of stuff on at the moment, I could do with an extra evening this week to do some bits and bobs and stuff at home. But I thought, no, I think it's silly that. So, I should go, and, it will be a different team. It'll be a chance to maybe see a couple of players that we've not seen for a while. And, Chesterfield are always going to bring a few fans with them. It's going to be a bit of a tasty game. So, I thought I'll go now. I mean, it absolutely threw it down, and I was, drowned rat by the time I got to the tram stop, and by the time I got to Hillsborough.
Oh, I do like a moist James.
And as it kind of dried off in the pub and had a couple of pints in the Riverside beforehand. But even then, like getting into the ground, I couldn't really feel all that giddy about it. But then strange thing is, like, literally from sitting down from the minute the game kicked off, it just felt like that there was, all this kind of negativity and stuff just seemed to vanish. Like, suddenly this was like the Wednesday of a couple of years ago, both in terms of how they were playing and the fact that, the crowd seemed quite patient. When we went 1-0 behind, I know it's only Chesterfield, it's only EFL Cup or whatever the hell it's called now. But, they weren't getting on the backs. It felt like it was sort of like, look, we'll stick with it. We're playing well. We know that we'll get the goals. It's coming. And of course it did. And I missed the first 2 goals because I was in the queue for beer at half time, having waded through. Anyone else that experienced the river of the South Stand after I believe that the sprinkler system went a bit haywire and basically flooded the concourse for 20 minutes. So after swimming to the bar and getting a couple of beers, so I missed those 2 goals, but saw them on the TV, and you're just like, they were good goals. That I think was probably the second best cross I've ever seen Jack Hunt make, and brilliantly finished off by Fletcher. And I don't know, it just felt like there was a real good vibe going on last night, and I enjoyed it. I came away going, I'm really glad that I came tonight.
Were you a little worried when we went behind, James? Did it cross your mind?
Kind of yes and no, because it was when we were on top, and we really were, there were points the first half where it was just one-way traffic. And my mate, John, I think it was, who sat next to me, said to me, it's just a matter of time, this. And I went, yeah, or the alternative is that they sneak one and they win it 1-0. And we're like, yeah, actually, that could happen. And, of course, they went 1-0 up. I wasn't particularly convinced it was a penalty. It was in front of me. I didn't really see anything majorly wrong. Again, I've not watched the replay back, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, there was. Was it? Fair enough. There was a tiny element of kind of like concern about it, but I think at the same time, and I think I got this from the whole crowd, there was a confidence of the fact that we're playing really well. Let's not panic too much. They will sort this out. They will turn it around, and the goals will come, and they did. So, you know what? No, I'll say no. I don't think I panicked when they scored. I don't think I was worried.
I was more worried before. It crossed my mind before it that we could have all this possession, play really well, and they'd snatch something at the end. But when they scored so early, I thought, well, no, we're going to come back from this. I was quite positive from that perspective. That we'd go on and win the game. And we did it comfortably. We had lots of possession. They had the 10 minutes or so. Every team does the 15 minutes in the game, don't they? But they just had 10 rather than 15.
Throughout that time, I will have you know that Dom Howson tweeted out that Sheffield Wednesday have lost their grip on this tie, which I am still waiting for an apology and a retraction for, Dom. So if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, please do that as quickly as possible.
Are we going to talk about the moment of the night? Well, there were 2 moments of the night, but I mean that goal from Barry Bannon. I have watched that one back, even though I've not watched the full highlights back. I didn't realise at the time he started in his own half. I didn't realise that. That was Bannon of 2 years ago. That was superb and a brilliant finish. And that ball, I love it when someone scores and the ball rises all the way into the top corner of the net. It just looks brilliant. That was superb. That was fantastic. And I'm really pleased for him because, he is one of those that gets a fair old bit of stick whenever we don't play well. He seems to get kind of like, the brunt of the blame. And I think last night he was able to play a little bit like maybe how he likes to play, a little bit kind of freer, and he can, literally cover the pitch as he did for that goal.
I think.
Yeah, it was a great goal.
I think all the goals last night were brilliant. Andy McElwain, I probably pronounced it wrong. I apologise, I've been mentioned on Twitter that there were 4 very different goals last night, which we've been sort of missing a bit. I think, haven't we? Obviously, Hooper's goal was a perfect poacher's goal, wasn't it? But it was such a good poacher's finish as well. It made it look really, really simple. But by because it took a deflection on its way in, it was moving about, it sort of jumped, it was in the air, it flicked it on, it looked like a poacher's goal. But I think that's such a difficult technique, which is brilliant. As James said, Hunty's cross was marvellous, perfect, and obviously Fletcher's just going to beat them up all day, isn't he? He really is. Bannon's was just... the Thunder Chuffer. It is the return of the Thunder Chuffer. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yes,
absolutely fantastic. And even Hutch, did the Hutch thing of sort of sneaking around the back, didn't he? It was a well-worked goal, and Hutch was there to sort of chase it in, which was brilliant. And I just think that's really, over the past couple of seasons, what we've been missing. We have been able to score a type of goal, but we've not been able to score all those different types of goals. So I know, again, I don't mean sound disrespectfully, it was Chesterfield, of course it was, but I think that will give the chaps such a confidence boost. And the celebrations, they just looked to be enjoying themselves so much. The celebration with Bannon's goal, where they were rubbing his boot, FIFA style, and all that kind of thing, it was brilliant, absolutely fantastic, loved it.
And
It
Hutch,
was just what we needed. It was just what we needed. It was the perfect response. You know, as you've said, and you know, we mean it with the utmost respect. It was only Chesterfield, and we did expect to win the game. But you know, there's good ways of winning games, and there's less good ways of winning games, and that was a really good way of winning that game. You know, the performance was really good, the goals were really good, and it just felt like there was a real good kind of positive feel among the players. Like they were enjoying that game and they were enjoying playing, and it was exactly the response that we that we needed.
I think Hutch summed it up at the end. He couldn't wait to get in goal, could he, for that last?
This was the other special moment of the match.
Yeah, it was. He absolutely could not wait. Straight across to get Cameron Dawson's shirt, get it on, get the gloves on, and Wildsmith obviously didn't want to go off. You could see that he was proper grumbling. They didn't want to come off and didn't look the happiest guy, but I don't think he ever does, to be fair. But yeah, it was fantastic joining the Bullen Hurst. Who else have we got? There's a few, isn't there? We put a few out last night on Twitter. Club Lee Peacock.
He had a lovely time there. Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely to see, isn't it? I just think that Hutch was sort of sat there going, go on, have a shot. Go on, have a shot. Go on, just a bloody ball. I think he was just so excited about the whole thing. But it was lovely to see.
It was. He didn't hesitate for 1 second, did he? He was straight over to get that shirt. And you just think if there's like 40 minutes that can, you know, sum up what Sam Hutchinson is about, it's, you know, he was a sub. No one really expected him to see him in this game, but you know, he came on as a sub. He played right back for a while. He scored a goal. He ends up in the net. And the only thing that didn't happen, which is the thing that always normally happens, is he didn't get booked. You're just like, what a weird night for Hutchinson. But I mean, fair play to them. Normally you would expect people to be looking around at each other trying to figure out, all right, who's going to have a go at this. Wildsmith wasn't even off the pitch before he was over there. He got the shirt on and he was warming up. He was well up for it.
I don't know where you stayed around till after the game as well. After the game, some of the players come, the ones who haven't played long or haven't actually gone on the pitch, sometimes come up and do like a warm down. And Hutch came out and ran up and down the pitch like an absolute man possessed. But the one thing that really disappointed me was Niwiu. He argued, his body language was terrible with the coach. He did not want to go on that pitch to warm down, warm up, whatever. He did not want to do it. Forestieri went out there. There were a couple of others, I can't remember who they were off the top now, but it certainly was Hutch, Forestieri, and Niwiu did not want to. His body language was awful, and it really pissed me off seeing him do that. If you don't want to be on that pitch, if you do not want to earn your money, because you can't be asked to run up and down after a game.
Well, I think Hutch has had his injuries. He did have a sort of an operation at the back end of last season as well, didn't he? So he's essentially still recovering, and I think that's why we weren't expecting to see him, and that bit of a run out would have done him the world of good. So obviously with his injury past, shall we say, he does need to be looking after himself, and he does seem to be doing that incredibly well as well. Obviously, regarding the game itself, Wildsmith went off. He was seen, and it has been reported he's absolutely fine. So that's all good news. We'll come on to Mr. Wildsmith a little bit later. But I'd also give a little shout out to a chap on Twitter called Steve Turner, who made me chortle heartily when after the game he said he's just heard Noid outside, and it turns out that Hutch was putting his bins out. He gets everywhere, that chap, doesn't he? What a lovely man. Loved it.
I did have to laugh when I was reading Twitter during the game. Alan Biggs calling Wildsmith Westwood. Don't think he was at the same game as us, but I can confirm he was actually at the same game as us because he walked behind us after the game. So yeah, he got that one a little wrong, and he did apologise.
To be honest, I made a bit of a tit myself there as well, because I, being the clever little chuffer I am, sent Mr. Biggs a tweet saying, "Oh, Alan, have you had your tables yet?" instead of tablets. So here's me trying to be a clever chuffer and just muck that up. So it's been decided that both myself and Alan will visit the pharmacy tomorrow and pick our tables up together. But no, lovely, absolutely fantastic, and a lovely evening. Really thoroughly enjoyable.
Here's a question. Where would you find all of the following in one place? Chairs, tables, beer, Vic, James, more beer, Dick Yow, Eddie, more beer, and the rest of the Wednesday week gang. That's right, it's the Riverside Cafe's new outside bar. All of your favourite lagers, ciders, soft drinks and hand pump ales are now available outside. Come and see the gang and give it a try. The Riverside Cafe's new outside bar, now open on match days.
Right then, ladies and gents, so let's crack on with the scant little bit of Wednesday news we have, shall we? First things first, Mr. Wildsmith, calling back to him, has now penned a new 5-year deal at Sheffield Wednesday, hasn't he? Which I think is fantastic news, isn't it? Really, really is.
Brilliant news. He's a big part of our future going forward. He will be the number one. You know, whenever Westwood decides to leave, hang his boots up, or that Wildsmith's playing much better than him, he'll be a Wednesday number one for a few years to come, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because he's homegrown, he's a Wednesday fan, and it's rare that you get those kind of players that join the club that they support. Obviously we've got Liam Palmer, which is brilliant, but just knowing there'll have been no hesitation. This guy, 5-year contract, yeah, sure, I'll sign that. He's got no desire to go anywhere else. He's getting some first team action. It was interesting actually hearing Carlos after the game. I didn't actually hear it, but I've read it. That he said that even if it was a league game, he'd have picked that same team. That regardless of who we were playing or what game it was, that was the team that was going to play the second game of the season. So whether that suggests that maybe he's thinking Wildsmith's going to get a bit more first team action this season, I don't know. I thought that was quite an interesting thing, but he's obviously going to have real role to play.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I adore Mr. Wildsmith. I think he's a fantastic prospect. I really, really do. I think he's absolutely marvellous. So what I'm about to say next, please don't take this in the wrong context. But does Mr. Wildsmith have the experience to be our number 2 at the moment, with a Premiership push, hopefully, looming in the wings? I don't get me wrong, I adore him. I think he's marvellous. Please don't think that anything about it. I think he's just a wonderful, wonderful keeper. But has he got the experience to be our number 2 right now?
Without a doubt, yes. In my opinion.
I see the argument that he hasn't. He's someone that if he'd maybe been out on loan for a couple of years, done a couple of seasons in League 2 and then maybe a season in League 1 or something like that, then it gives him that much more experience. I think the problem is there aren't going to be many teams in the Championship that have got a number 2 goalkeeper that's going to tick every box that you want your goalkeeper to have, and maybe we'd have had it that season with Westwood at number 1 and Kirkland if he'd have stayed as our backup goalkeeper, because you think you've got experience across the park there. But when you've got a goalkeeper that's got experience, they don't want to sit on the bench, they want to be playing football. So the chances of you being able to get someone that's got experience, and actually we've got that player in Jake Keane, he's got plenty of experience, but for whatever reason Carlos feels that Wildsmith is a better choice as our backup goalkeeper. He sees him in training every day. He obviously feels that he is mature beyond his years and that he's more than capable of doing it.
I think he comes across as a really confident, almost a bit of an arrogance to him. I think he does look a miserable bugger on the pitch, but I think that's a real positive, because he doesn't take any shit. And even when that foul, it wasn't a foul, that collision at the end when he went off, that looked like it really hurt at the time, and he walked off the pitch when the stretcher was waiting for him at one point.
Oh, don't get me wrong. If you're going to sort of collide, because it was O'Grady that he collided with, who we all know is somewhat of a unit, isn't he, Mr. O'Grady? He
Yes.
he really
played fairly well for them last night. One of their standout players.
He was the only one in their team that actually looked like they got much about him, and he didn't really do very much. He's just a big bugger still, isn't he? I mean, he is an athlete.
Puts himself about. Yeah,
you can fire balls up to him, and it doesn't matter who he's playing against. He's not scared of any defenders, is he? And it was like 5 minutes into the game, I turned to my mate Kieran and just said, "Just have a look on your phone, see what odds you get on Chris O'Grady to score the first goal tonight."
Well, surprised me in the slightest. I wonder, but no, Mr. Wildsmith. Again, I meant no disrespect by my comments whatsoever. It's something I popped out on Twitter during the game last night, and I do think he's a wonderful, wonderful keeper, and a few more years' experience, and I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. But yeah, that said, though, if you were Mr. Dawson, obviously he couldn't come on after Wildsmith got off because we'd used all our subs. But would you be just a little bit miffed with Hutch whipping off your shirt and just taking your place after waiting so long for a chance? He finally gets that chance.
Would you really be? I don't think Vic would be miffed about Hutch whipping off her shirt at all. And I think I can say that for a few other people too.
Me included. Okay.
This is a completely kind of off topic, but not off topic. This is a different debate. We might not even want to get into it. But I've thought for a while, right? When you've made 3 substitutions and your goalkeeper is injured, should you not be allowed a 4th substitution? If you have to substitute your goalkeeper for your substitute keeper, should that not count towards your 3 subs? It just seems really unfair on teams.
If that was the case, though, we would never have had the David Hurst situation. We would never have had the Bully situation. We would never have had the Lee Peacock situation. Exactly. And you wouldn't be able to see Hutch whipping off his shirt.
It's much more fun for the game.
Fair enough. It is fun for the game, but you just think, I mean, last night didn't matter. We were 4-1 up, and it was an EFL Cup game, and it didn't matter. But if that last night was a league game, and it was mega important, and we made the 3 substitutions, you end up with your to be fair to him, still got to say injury prone midfielder ends up in the net, and you just think that's kind of got disaster written all over it. It just seems like it gives a real unfair advantage to the team that you're playing generally. And the Football League have been pretty good in terms of some of the rules and stuff they've brought in recently have been quite sensible. Goal line technology, sensible. A few other things that have come in this season have been sensible. Would a sensible thing not be that substituting your goalkeeper is a separate substitution to your other 3?
Football's never been a sensible game, has it? Let's face it. Especially not.
Well, damn it should be.
Right then, chaps. So after all the debacle with what happened regarding the kits, etc., obviously you've had a chance to see them both in action. Are you happy with these football kits, boys and girls? Or just boys, should I say? No girls.
Well, love the home kit. Love it. I've not seen the away kit up close.
I'm not sold on either. When I saw the pictures of them when they were released on whatever day it was it last Wednesday? I think it was, wasn't it? I wasn't particularly grabbed by either of them. I thought on the pictures they both looked a little bit cheap. A little bit rushed, I don't know. Then seeing to be honest, right, seeing the away kit on Saturday, it does look a little bit better in person. I think the reason that I don't like it is because it said on the website when they released it, they said it's a nod back to the 92-93 yellow and black pinstripe away shirt, and I'm like, it looks nothing like that whatsoever, and it's an insult to that shirt to suggest that it looks like it in the slightest. They're not stripes, it's like a wavy thing, and it's got like block black sleeves. It doesn't look like it at all. But actually it looks all right. It didn't look bad at all. And the home kit, I mean, it's a proper chalk and cheese situation, this home kit, because overheard quite a few people saying how much they really liked it when they saw it in action last night. It did grow on me a little bit. I'm not overly grabbed by it, but I've got to stand by what I said last week. To me, a kit is a kit, and I'm not really that fussed. And I quite like change. I like doing something different every now and then. And the fact that we've done something that is a real nod to our our proud history in our anniversary year. Fair enough. It did look better than I thought it was going to do in person, but it's not for me.
Was it the older generation, shall we say, that were saying that we're enjoying the kit? Do you think there, Jay? Because obviously this is the kit that they grew up with.
Not at all.
No, my kids love it.
Not at all. It was a real cross section. Couple of the mates that I sit with were saying that they thought it looked really, really good. And one who said after 5 minutes said it feels like our kit already. It just feels right. And I didn't really share that, but I can't say it bothered me or anything like that. And there is something to be said to just seeing us wearing something that bit different, because there's only so much you can do with stripes. So why not?
Yeah, kids loved it. So I like it. I'm an old bugger. They're young.
Kids loved it, so I liked it. Oh, you're so down with kids, aren't you, Ritty old bean? Look at me, I'm a cool dad. If my kids didn't like it, I won't like it.
I'm with it, bro.
You certainly are. But no, I mean, I've kind of reserved judgment on the kit. I've not said if I do or don't like it, but I must admit, after seeing it, if you like, and I've seen the photos and things like that, it is a bit like looking back at the old photos before, obviously, I was around, been a Wednesday night and things, and I must admit, now I am rather enjoying it. I'm happy to nail my colours to the mast because I'm a right stripe person. I will sort of use the vernacular as Fudge does.
Stripe wanker.
But I must admit, that kit is rapidly growing on me. So yeah, no, fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Right, so James, the steering group, you and Victoria were kind enough to do a bit of a special podcast for us last week about all these bits and bobs as well. And obviously, for those that didn't catch up, because I must admit, I apologise, James, it's completely on me. And that podcast went on iTunes and it didn't really go anywhere else. That was my fault. I unfortunately ran out of time and didn't put it on YouTube or anywhere else. So I will try to get that up so the people that are listening to this...
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
You've got Jeeves. What the hell is he doing? Sack the bugger.
He's away sewing these kits together at the moment to save a bit of money for the club.
Right.
That's probably why they're slightly shoddy.
Yeah.
But if you are listening to this now, I will try and get them up on YouTube this week as well. So if you didn't listen to the steering group pod, then I will try and pop that up there. But some of the things that you mentioned in that pod, Jay, have sort of been announced and bits and bobs as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through stuff in too much detail because I say there's a 40-minute separate podcast that's there. We did it on Friday, so I know it's a bit weird. It's a strange time for us to be sticking an extra podcast out, and it's a long time since I think we've done 2 in a week. But it's there if you want to catch up with everything that was talked about at the steering group. A full explanation as to why the shirts were late and what happened there. So if you want to hear that story, then get that podcast. But yeah, one of the other things that we touched on, and I was incredibly vague when talking about this because I'd gone home to actually get some sleep. I wasn't one of the super committed people that stayed until 1 a.m. at the
you were keeping me awake.
But one of the things that was talked about after I'd gone was what's now been fully announced in the last 24 hours, which is this Club 1867 idea, whereby you pay a sum of money ranging from, I think it's 1,500 to just over 2,000, right. Which effectively what you're buying is your name on a plaque that goes onto your seat in Hillsborough. But actually, in reality, what you're really buying is you're buying your 3-year Premier League season ticket. But you're buying it now. You're buying it before we get there. So officially, you get that season ticket for free. But it's all kind of semantics, isn't it, as to how you view that. So that's been officially announced today. I think details are still a little bit sketchy. I don't think anyone quite knows yet as to whether or not you can pay for it by instalments or how long that's kind of the window to do that is going to be open for. And I think there's been a lot of questions today, and it's interesting as well that quite soon after that, the club have now announced this fans forum on Friday, which is kind of a little bit like steering group light, I think is probably the best way to describe that, where it's kind of open to anyone, although you do need to get a ticket just to stop it being a free-for-all. But it's not an invite thing. You can kind of invite yourself really and ask for a ticket to go along to that on Friday. And I suspect that really will be used as an opportunity to really talk about how this Club 1867 is going to work, why it's so important, where we are in terms of financial play and finances, and fair play to the chairman and to the other club officials who've kind of said, rather than just sticking out really long statements about it, let's just invite people to come along and hear us talk about it in person. We can explain how it works, why it's important, why we need to do it, and what the benefits are going to be for both parties, really, both for the fans and for the club. And you're going to go along to that, aren't you, Rich? On Friday?
Yeah, I've applied for tickets. Hopefully, I'll get some. So yeah, it'll be. I can't like the forums there. I quite like say it's steering group light. Is a good description, and it kind of gets you a bit closer. And there will be some. I'm sure there'll be some questions asked about hot water at that as well. But anyway, that's a different kettle of fish. And I'm sure there's some people from Lancashire there as well. But what I found quite interesting from Club 1867 is there's also I think one of the offers is for the West Stand as well. So that you'd assume that that's going to be used as something's going to use as a home kind of. It's obviously some kind of. It's about getting cash into the business now, isn't it? Well, to kind of break the financial fair play issues that potentially could arise. So the more
It's a
kind of
clever idea,
commercial
isn't
income
it?
we're getting, and it's. I think one of the interesting things about it as well was they're saying that you can actually, it's a 3-year ticket, but you could actually use that 3-year ticket in the same season. So you and 2 mates.
Yep.
From what I understand from it as well. So that's
Yeah,
quite interesting, quite a fair way of doing it, I thought as well. So you and 2 mates can all club in together to get it.
I mean, playing devil's advocate.
It makes a lot of sense.
I absolutely understand why they're doing it. I think it's a fantastic idea. And Mr. Chansey put out a wonderful statement with this as well, where he said obviously he's put a lot of money in, but he wish he could put more in and do this himself, but he can't, etc., etc., etc. So he needs a little bit of help, obviously with financial fair play. But it's a bloody lot of money to sort of chuck in as well, isn't it? I mean, it's, again, playing devil's advocate is this when we get to the Premier League, which is a beautifully positive statement, which I think is fantastic. But what if we didn't? What happens then? Is this what I assume these are the questions?
Well, it's a gamble, isn't it? It's a risk. You know, you would think that it does feel at the moment like it is a matter of time, isn't it? It's just a question of when. And it didn't happen in year 1, and it didn't happen in year 2, and that leaves us in this kind of nasty limbo situation whereby financial fair play really starts to come into play now, and we've got to be careful. And I think what the chairman's quite rightly kind of made the point is that that in the money that we need to get to the Premier League. I'm not phrasing this how I wanted to phrase it. It made so much more sense when I said it in my head earlier on. But it's basically like saying that that if we can get the money now, that's going to help us get to the Premier League, and your reward is the ticket. So paying for your season ticket for the Premier League now will actually help us to get there in the first place. So it just seems like a really productive way of doing it. And there are going to be a lot of people that can't afford it, and we all get that. I don't think it's something that I'm going to do personally, because it's it's a massive outlay on something that it's not that long ago that I bought the 3-year season ticket, and for a lot of people, you just don't know what your circumstances are going to be in however many years' time when we do make it to the Premier League. But I think for those people that that can afford it and that have got that kind of disposable income, then it's a real positive way that they can put some money into the club and get a real benefit for themselves as well.
Yeah, I think he says that, and Chancery says that it's not. He knows it's not for everybody. Because not everybody can afford it. If I can't afford it, if I could, I would. But and I think most people are in that. It's not some compulsory scheme. It is something where it's an option if you have that income. Actually not that income, that cash, to be able to use it in a positive way that drives the club forward. Because at the end of the day, it is us now that have to kind of pay for us to get to the Premier League. As much as Mr. Chancellor would love to do it all himself, he can't, and it's not because he doesn't want to. He just can't.
Absolutely. Right then, ladies and gents. So that's going to bring us on to the QPR arrival. Of course, QPR have started the season rather wonderfully, but they have been at home so far, haven't they? Obviously, they beat Reading opening game of the season, which was somewhat of a shock, I think, is right to say. Do you think?
I don't know. I've got a weird feeling about QPR this season. I think Ian Holloway knows what he's doing. He knows that club inside out. And I think he's at the summer and he might just have got their house in order a little bit now. I think they could surprise a few people this season. A lot of people tipping them to really struggle. I've just got a feeling, I'm not necessarily saying that they'll be up there kind of battling for top 6 or anything, but I've got a feeling they might do all right this season, QPR.
I think it's one of those games you look at, and we all look at one on paper like we always thought we should have beaten Preston, but it's one where we should be getting 3 points at Hillsborough. First home game of the season, first home game, league home game. It should be 3 points.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more with that. And I think that it's almost the kind of game. If you could go through the league and pick, right, who do you want as first home league game of the season, QPR would probably come towards the top of quite a few people's lists, because you'd think that it's still kind of a new era for them, and they're still kind of getting their house in order a little bit, and maybe a good time to play them. And you would think that it's a game whereby we should have enough. It's not a game we need to go into worrying about, are we good enough to beat them? Yeah, we are good enough to beat them. it's just, if we get it right on the day, it should be 3 points. That.
And do you think anybody from the match last night against Chesterfield sort of staked their claim? Obviously, it's all well and good saying that we need to put our team out, not just to satisfy ourselves, but against our opposition as well. But I mean, our sort of behind the scenes chap, our video man, Mr. Richard Tissington, made a wonderful point over the week actually in our little chat room that one of the big players that gets overlooked again and again and again when people are sort of putting out there, I'd pick this team for this match, is Mr. Wallace, because he has been brilliant, hasn't he? I can't see why people do overlook him as much as they do.
I think Wallace for me is. I think it comes on. I have really big doubts about him. And then he comes on and proves me wrong every single time. But I still have those doubts because he is getting, what is he, 31, 32, 33, something like that. He's getting towards the twilight of his career. Can he do 90 minutes every week? Probably not, no. And I think it's time to kind of... I think it's a position we probably need to strengthen in, to be honest. That we do have Wallace around to be able to come on. Or even start and do, and he always he gives 110%. There's nobody can knock Ross Wallace for his commitment and the way he plays.
Oh, absolutely. I can't think of a time where he's annoyed me, done anything wrong. Obviously, you look back at some of the wonderful goals he's scored, and you look back at things like the Arsenal game and those sorts of things. I mean, obviously, he scored the goal in the Arsenal game. He crossed in the cross for Zhao in the Arsenal game. Those are the sort of the immediate memories that pop up about Ross Wallace. But I can't think of any time where he's nothing terrible. I mean, his experience of the game is incredible, which I think is something that this team really does need as well. His reading of the game, obviously we see that he gets that bored playing the game sometimes, that he pinches people's notes and things like that. He's so switched on that football pitch, and I think a lot of people really do miss what he does.
I think the other two that have really put pressure on Carlos, or not pressure, but given a decision to make, are the strikers last night, Hooper and Fletcher.
Yeah, agreed. I think they've got to play on Saturday. I really do. I think they've got to play on Saturday. I also think if anyone kind of staked a bit of a claim, and he wasn't on the pitch for very much, but I thought when Winnall came on, he's not afraid to have a go, and he looked like he was determined. He wanted a goal last night. He wanted to score, and every time he got sight of goal, he was having a pop. And he came close a couple of times. Good save by the keeper, I think, for one of them. And he had another one that was not far off the mark. So I think he kind of staked his claim a little bit in terms of maybe not starting on Saturday, but kind of made the point of he should have been on the bench last Saturday, and he should definitely be on the bench this coming Saturday. And there's just we've kind of talked about it, but there seems very little logic in having both Fletcher and Nuhiu involved in the same game, because they're a similar sort of player, and unless tactically you think that having them both available to have them both on the pitch at the same time for whatever reason to change a game,
that chuck out of people
makes some kind of sense. But if that's the case, why weren't they on the pitch together on Saturday when we definitely needed to change the game? It seems daft to kind of have the option and then not take it.
I think the other thing to think about is like you say who's going to come in and potentially come in after last night's game. What about any kind of? Do we think there's going to be any incomings going to happen this week, transfer wise?
don't know. I mean, well, we should have had one already through the door, shouldn't we? And it all went wrong at the last minute. You'd imagine we're out there. There's a lot of chatter about Harley Dean from Brentford. I don't really know if there's anything in that or not. But
stripped to the captaincy, apparently.
It's been stripped to the captaincy, yeah. And you know, they are a selling club. Brentford. That is the basis that they're built on. So there could be something in that, and I think he'd be a very good acquisition. He had a great game at our place last season. So who knows? You know, that might be something that comes off. But you do get the feeling that we're certainly not done in terms of our business. There's still at least one, possibly more players that we're looking to land. So you would think if we do bring in someone before Saturday, they probably wouldn't be involved that quickly, though, would they?
I feel impelled at this point to call this the Rumour Lounge.
The Rumour Lounge.
I thought that
been a
place
while.
had burnt
It's been a
down. And bloody rightly so as well.
It's still around.
It got closed down by environmental health. Closed it down because of an issue with flooding because of a sprinkler system or something. I don't know.
The other little thing I would say as well about sort of staking their claim. Talk to me about Abdi. How did he look on? Again, I know it was Chesterfield, but how did it look? Because from what I've seen, and I've not actually watched the full match back yet, so I apologise for that. But what I heard, listening to the game and what I've seen, he sounded pretty nifty actually.
Yeah, he played really well.
I thought he looked like a man trying to get back his fitness.
I think you're probably right in that respect, but I thought his touch and his vision and everything, and there were just signs of we know there's no doubt that he's a great player, and we saw signs of that last night, and I thought that he staked his claim pretty well, and I think that. You could take the conclusion from the Preston game about this idea of playing Hutch and Bannon together. Does that work when you've not got Kieran Lee in there? Can you play Hutch and Bannon together, or is that just too negative? They're both players that are going to generally look backwards, aren't they? And Hutch, we know the kind of player that he is, and Bannon does kind of do this thing whereby he'll run around a little bit with the ball, but he doesn't kind of make those kind of runs that cut through the defence that you want your central midfielder to make, the kind of thing that Kieran Lee does. When we've not got Kieran Lee around, you think that Abdi should be starting, he should be playing. And if he was injured on Saturday, then fair enough. But I think, he got a good run out last night, or on Tuesday night, depending when you listen to this. And yeah, I'd want him involved on Saturday. I'd want him to be playing on Saturday, to be honest.
Because I've always seen sort of Abdi and Bannon as similar-ish type players, but did they not clash at all with the playing styles, or did they gel quite well?
It seemed to suit Bannon. It seemed to give Bannon a bit more license to. I think he felt a bit more confidence coming forward because he knows that Abdi will hold the line when he needs to do, and vice versa. When Abdi came forward, Bannon was happy to kind of fill that gap and plug that gap a little bit. So it actually seemed to work all right. It was just Chesterfield. We've got to keep saying that. It was only Chesterfield. Can you do that in a league game? I don't know, but it certainly gives questions for Carlos to be pondering.
Apparently, Bannon was bloody spiffing. And again, I know it was Chesterfield, but apparently he was sort of back to his Bannon-type self, wasn't he? He played really superly well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He was really good.
Really good to hear. I love him. I know a lot of people have been, because he does get a lot of stick, doesn't he, bless him. But I do hope we see him. And if that's a partnership that's going to work, then absolutely. Bannon Abdi all the way. Right then, chaps. So obviously, after we've finished whooping QPR, we have got the visitor of Sunderland as well, hasn't he? Obviously, popped down from the Premier League. There's been a lot of some bits and bobs to speak about Sunderland and all the rest of it. But are they still somewhat of an unknown quantity in the Championship yet, or do we think they're going to do a Newcastle, or do you think they're going to just carry on sinking, boys and girls?
I've got this feeling that they're going to carry on sinking. That's my honest opinion. Yeah.
It's dead hard to call, isn't it? It's dead hard to call, I think, with Sunderland, because they have to be fair to them. They've rebuilt the squad a bit. They've brought in some new players. Obviously, they've got the new manager there, Simon Grayson, who's taken some of kind of his players along. Aidan McGeady's there. They've brought in, and I can't remember his name now, the striker that was at Bury, who looked like his top two leagues career was done and dusted, and they've taken him there. He's trying to build something. Again, we might be playing at the right time because it might not have fallen into place for them yet. If it does at all, I don't know. They are the unknown quantity, I think, in the Championship this season. But I think QPR and Sunderland inside a week at home, you've got to be looking at those and thinking, right, if we're serious about it this season, that's got to be a minimum of 4 points. Yeah. And really, we should be able to take 6 points from those two games.
Yeah. Yeah, James Vaughan is a guy you were thinking about, James, but
that's it.
Yeah, it's I like I said, I think they're gonna struggle against Sunderland. Look, I've got the squad up here now, and it's very different to what it was last year. I think already, because literally, that's just the way it happens when you get relegated. And I think they were on a downward spiral, and I think they might go down that route that that Man City went down all those years ago when they went back, down 2 divisions, and although they came straight back up pretty much. But I think that's what's going to happen with them, and they might.
There was another team that did that as well, wasn't there? What were they called? Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they were. Yes. And they still haven't got back. Yeah.
Oh, those are the days. Bring out the 90s, chaps. It was wonderful. Right, then, gents, are any of you chaps having little bits for this evening?
I have 3 bits
Bits
to
away, James.
talk about this evening. Two of which I saved from last week, because I think we were still recording at about 4 a.m. last week, so I really couldn't be bothered with them. The first thing I want to mention, and we've actually talked about something similar to this before, because he's got previous for doing this, but a thing that's been doing the rounds on social media today, the letter that Jordan Rhodes sent to a Wednesday fan, which someone's taken a photo of, and it's kind of been doing the rounds on Twitter. We've all heard people say that Jordan Rhodes is generally considered to be the nicest guy in football. But it feels like it's not like a fake thing. It's not like he wants to be liked, which is why it's nice. I think he is genuinely nice, isn't he? And I think dead nice that he handwrites. And how many more has he sent that don't get photographed and put on Twitter? You just get the impression that he probably responds to every single letter that he gets by hand, and he asks loads of questions in them, and he just seems genuinely interested. You just think, what a really nice guy. So I think he deserves a mention for that. So that's the first thing that I want to mention. 2 other things as well. One's just an update on a guy that we've talked about a few times actually on the podcast. Do you remember a guy called Ian Tootle, who was aiming to be the first person with cancer to climb Everest, and of course a lot of this happened over the summer. He made it to the summit, so he actually achieved his goal, and it sounds like he really did it against the odds, because his tent got destroyed. He suffered from a thing called snow blindness when the snow's that bad. All manner of stuff. It's an amazing achievement. He's raised over £45,000, and that money is still coming in. And I checked that a week ago. It's probably more than that now. So just an astounding achievement, and what a guy. And he deserves every bit of credit that he gets, and every bit of publicity that he's got for something that, there's no way in the world that I'd be able to manage that. And I'm obviously, in a much better position in terms of my health than he is. So just, I really bow down to Ian for what he's achieved. So well done to him. The final thing that I want to mention as well, which is it's actually a new fan group that's set up. Anyone that was at the steering group meeting last week will have heard this referenced. So you know that we as a football club, we have quite a lot of fans in America, not just in the States, but in the other parts of America as well. For whatever reason, strange that we have such a big following there, but we do. And there's a lot of expats out there as well. And there's various different supporters groups. The New York Owls are obviously quite well known, but there are other ones as well. Florida Owls, I've had a few dealings with. There's an Ohio Owls. And anyway, there's a new group that's formed that's called Owls Americas, which is kind of an umbrella organisation to bring all these together. And I think this new iFollow thing, whereby you can watch all the games now when you're abroad, has really kind of helped. So this group that's trying to bring as many fans together as possible who live across all the different parts of America. They're going to organise kind of meetups where they watch the games together and have a few drinks and whatnot, even though I think most games are at something like 7 a.m. over there, so that is serious commitment, but who doesn't want a beer at 7 a.m? But yeah, just to give them a mention, so if you're someone that listens to this podcast and lives anywhere in the Americas kind of continent, or you know someone that does that maybe isn't as active on social media, let them know about this. Look them up on Twitter. They've got a website as well that's got a blog on it and details about who they are. Brilliant organisation, really, really good thing that they're trying to do there. So anyone that lives in that region, or even if you're going on holidays to America and you still want to watch the games with someone, get involved with Owls Americas.
A holiday to America? What's wrong with Flamborough or Bridlington? Good Lord, James.
Well, this is another hour podcast of its own, isn't it, for me to tell you all the things that are wrong with Flamborough. I actually quite like Flamborough.
It's a wonderful, wonderful place. Are you all bitted out, James?
That's me all bitted out.
Your bits have been spent.
They've well and truly emptied.
But of course, if people do want to find other parts of your bits, James, where can we do that, Albin?
That's a pretty horrendous thought, isn't it? On Twitter, at James Marriott, the usual kind of ramblings there, and more tales of drunkenness from the weekend. So if you're not going to the game at the weekend, you want a slightly alternative commentary to the day, I'll probably be live tweeting lots of photos of beers. Which is probably very boring, but if you do want to see it, James Marriott.
And Dickie, how been? If we want to get hold of you over there on the Twitterage, where can we do that?
Just before I give you that, you didn't ask me about my
I did say, has anybody got any bits? And you just sat quiet in the background. So I assumed that your bits were shriveled and unused.
I'm never quiet in the background. Mine's on a slightly more serious point. I think today it's been the funeral of Ross Blair, who was Andy Blair, who used to play for Wednesday. It was his funeral today. So obviously thoughts with Andy Blair, being an ex-player, and I believe Ross was also a big Wednesday fan, so I assume that was during Andy's time at Hillsborough. He kind of, much like a lot of players around that time with us, like George Hurst, obviously became a Wednesday fan, even though his dad wasn't originally. But it was his funeral today, so thoughts go out to Andy Blair and rest of Ross Blair's family.
Absolutely, here.
And you can find me at Dickie L on Twitter. I'll probably can't be asked to post on Saturday. I'll be drinking a beer while James is photographing it.
Good deal. Works for me.
Are you buying it too?
Depends how drunk it gets.
No. Okay.
Don't be silly. Actually, yeah, that's fair. Can I just to mention this? Sorry, which I was toying as to whether to mention this or not because it sounds really pretentious, but I just think it's worth mentioning. In Preston on Saturday, there was just me and my mate Kieran. We met up with everyone else a little bit later on, and the pub that we went to in Preston, we had a round. Bearing in mind that there's two of us, so this was 2 pints, £16.
Chauffeured,
£8.
Has Preston moved to London?
What were you drinking?
That justified taking a photo of it and put it on Twitter. It was very, very nice. It was a passion fruit and mango smoothie beer or something. It was very, very nice.
Big sick to me.
You're pretentious.
Of course.
Just for the record, he paid for that round, not me. He paid for it.
Did he propose afterwards? Because if he paid that much in a round, I probably wanted to.
To be fair, he could have done.
If you would like to get hold of me over there on the Twitter, you can do that at Lord Hates. That's L0RD_H. You can get hold of the podcast at TWWcast as well. And one thing that we don't plug half as much as we should do coming at this part of the programme is the chuffing website as well, isn't it, James? This is your baby.
Yeah, it's lovely and shiny and great. So thewednesdayweek.co.uk. You can listen to, if you don't want to do all the downloading stuff, you can listen to the podcast via the website. Works perfectly well on your smartphone and on iPads and whatnot. One thing that did come up last week, a couple of people that mentioned about the fact that we have during the summer, we've changed our hosting service from, you used to, if you got an Android phone, it might be in the past that you listened via Podbean. Well, that doesn't work anymore. However, there is now a link for you to subscribe to our podcast via Android on the website. So go to thewednesdayweek.co.uk, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see subscribe on Android, and that will sort you out with the app and everything that you need to
Absolutely.
listen
Although
to
if you've got an Android phone, you're probably not hearing this, so we've probably lost our listenership.
Yeah, probably.
But we apologise for that. It is something that we I must admit overlooked completely and utterly. And again, I shall put that firmly in my plate. So yes, I am sorry. But certainly, if you're like over there on the YouTubes and the Facebooks and all the usual places, but really the website, I must admit, James, you have done a wonderful job of the website. It is a spiffing place to be. And can we expect the return of the bloggage and things quite soon if anybody does want to get in touch and do a bit of blogging?
Absolutely, and I'll apologise here to a guy called Blair, who's a regular listener to the podcast and someone that I've quite a bit of chatter with on Twitter. He did send me a blog after Saturday, which I was going to put up, and then after the game on Tuesday night, and it just felt like everything was positive again. It just didn't quite feel right because it was something that was kind of having a bit of a moan about Saturday, and fair comment. But I just thought, let's try and keep the positivity going. So, yeah, absolutely looking for blogs. If you do want to get in touch, you can do it via the website, or if you just want to drop me an email, james@thewednesdayweek.co.uk. Anyone is welcome to write a blog for us. And yeah, we'd really like to get that going again, big style this season.
Blog it up. It has been a pleasure, as always, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Be good, be safe, and we shall see you real soon.
Chance here, a great save by Turner from the clear. Might come a terrific goal by Sheridan. Brexman against Jones. Get in. You could have two goalkeepers in there that would have trouble with saving.
Retract it, Dom. Retract it.